Alright guys, so here we are. Let's get started. We are going to be dividing with whole numbers and decimals again today. But today, specifically, we're dividing a whole number by a decimal, okay? Group A, you're a little loud, please. So we're dividing a whole number by a decimal. Okay. Now, here's the cool thing about dividing with a decimal is that you don't actually divide by decimal. We're going to get rid of the decimal in the divisor, and you just divide like normal, okay? Little bitty tiny tweaks that we're making to our division problems. The key to remembering all of this is that you've got to get the decimal out of the divisor, okay? Get decimal out of divisor. If you don't do that, you will not get the problem right, okay? Okay, so write that down for me. You have to get the decimal out of the divisor. Now, if you'd like a little story to kind of help you remember, it's like embarrassing Uncle Decimal is hanging out in your front yard, okay? And he smells like Italian food, and which is delicious, but he's loud and he's obnoxious, and he wears like tank tops and dark socks and flip-flops and like too short shorts, and he's just embarrassing. Your friends drive by, he yells at them, hey, hey, and you're just embarrassed. They make fun of you. It's terrible. It is actually your uncle, okay? Disclaimer, this is not a real person, but apparently it is Gus's uncle. It was based on a not true person, but sometimes that happens, and it is actually a true person. You got to get him out of the front yard. And if we're looking at a division problem, let's say 2 divided by a half. 2 divided by 0.5. What part of this problem is the quote-unquote front yard? If we're talking about this is a house, excuse me, what is it, Tanvir? Jomana.
Divisor?
Yeah. No, yes, the divisor is the front yard, yes. Okay? So we've got to get him out of the front yard and into the house somewhere. It's okay for him to be in the house. It's fine. He's your uncle, he's family, we have to love him. But we got to get him out of the front yard. He's just too embarrassing. It's killing your social life, okay? Now, let's do a little bit of thinking about this problem. If we're going to take 2 and put it in groups of 0.5 or half, about how many halves are in 2? You can think about money. How many 50 cents are in $2? Tell me, Alexander. 4. So this is kind of like when we multiplied decimals and your brain sort of exploded because we multiplied but got a smaller number. Here we're dividing, and sometimes our quotient is bigger than the dividend. What? But if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. So we're expecting our quotient here to be 4. Let's see what happens. You do quickly need a red pen. Sorry, I meant to tell you that. We've got to get our decimal out of the divisor, okay? So what can we do to scoot him over? What can you do, Margaret?
You could put the decimal after the 2 because...
Well, hold on, let's talk about the divisor first.
Oh.
Not the dividend. We'll work on him in a minute. What do you think? What do we have to do to get that decimal out of the divisor? And he can be invisible. That's okay. They're always there. What are you going to do, John?
To the right.
Yeah, we're going to move him to the right one time. Which really, what are we doing when we move decimals? Like, what's the technical thing that we're doing, Jomana?
Making it a whole number.
Yes, but how? How, Sir Francis?
Because when you move the decimal over there,
Uh-huh.
you change, it moves the place value, and what?
You're multiplying it by 10, right? That's what's really happening. He's being multiplied by 10. So then we have to look at 2. But 2 doesn't have a decimal. Does he? Yes, he does. It's a superpower, right? Where is the decimal in the number 2? Where is it, Gus?
It's behind the 2.
Yeah. It is invisible. Sometimes you need them, sometimes you don't. Now, you cannot change your divisor and leave your dividend the same. If you do that, you've changed the problem, and you don't have the authority to do that, okay? So what do you think we're going to have to do to this decimal in the dividend? What are we going to do, Jenny?
Move the decimal to the right once and add a 0.
Why just once?
Because it moved it once on the divisor.
Absolutely, because I only moved it once in the divisor. Chaz, if I move it 2 times in the divisor, how many times am I going to move it in the dividend?
If you move it 2 times and wait.
If I move it 2 times here in the divisor, how many times do I have to move it in the dividend?
2 times.
2, exactly. Now, Jenny told me I move it here. What else did you say, Jenny? Because there's an important piece.
Add a 0.
Yeah, you have to add a 0. Because we're not just going to assume that people know that if I leave a space, then there's, a 0. No, that's not how math works, okay? There's no gray. It either is or it isn't, Connor, okay? Now, here's a key point that I want you to do. This is really super messy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Kind of easy to get tangled up in it. So I want you to rewrite it. Always just rewrite the problem for me when we're doing this. Because that way you just don't get confused by something silly. Like, you wrote it wrong or something. Now all of a sudden, we're in familiar territory. What is 20 divided by 5? 4. And that's it. Okay? I think you'll find today that we're going to be dividing a lot of whole numbers.
That's weird because if you
Isn't
kept
it
the
weird?
decimal the same, it would have been the same answer. It would have.
If you did what now?
If you kept like the decimal like where it was on the first number.
In the divisor? It makes sense mentally, but you don't. That's not how it works. Okay? You're always going to get rid of the decimal out of the divisor. And by doing that, to do that, you multiply it by 10 or 100 or 1,000. And you do the exact same thing to the dividend. Interesting little factoid I'm going to throw out there. Something similar is going to happen when we deal with fractions. Okay? To make an equivalent fraction, can you just change the numerator? No. What do you have to do? What is it, Gus?
If it's 2 8s,
Yeah.
you have to change you can't just change the 2 to 1.
Right.
You have to change the bottom number to.
You have to change them both. You have to keep it the same, otherwise you change the number, right? Or change the fraction. What? Math is related to each other? It's not just simple skills unrelated? Okay, here we go. 80 divided by 3 2/10. Sorry. 80 divided by 3 2/10. Walk me through the problem with the red pen. I'm going to let you do the next one by yourself. Walk me through it, Margaret.
You need to move the decimal and the divisor over 1.
So you're really doing what here? When you move it over, how can you do that? Yeah, you're making a whole number. How? You're doing what, Susan?
Multiplying them both by 10.
Yeah, you're multiplying them by 10. So we've moved 3.2 and made them 32. But now 80 divided by 32 is not the same thing as 80 divided by 3.2. So what do we have to do to keep it the same problem, Kathleen?
You have a decimal at the end of 80, so you move it over once since you moved the 2 over once.
Yes.
You put a 0.
Uh-huh.
I'm almost over.
Hey, my friend. Glad you're here.
The 0. That's in
Absolutely. And really, after we do that, what do we do with this decimal? And forget about it, okay? That's really, yeah, I'll show you the picture in a minute, okay? Now we're going to rewrite the problem because this is a big fat mess. And when we have messes, we're way more likely to make a mistake. Now all of a sudden, this is topic 5. 800 divided by 32. Let's take a big fat chunk. What can we take?
80.
I'm thinking, yeah, how many times will 32 go into 80? 2, but it's really 20. Now, here's one thing to remember with decimals. Please, please, please. Not so much today's lesson, but just in general, really. You have to put your first digit of your answer over the last digit that you used to divide.
So wait, this is dividing decimals by whole numbers or whole numbers by decimals?
Whole numbers by decimals.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. Because if I'm using 20 in my quotient, the 0 is in the ones place. It's got to go over the last digit that we need. We didn't use just 80. We didn't use just 8. We used 800. So the 0 has to go over this 0. Because if you don't line it up correctly, it will not be right. All right. So 2 times 32 is 64 plus a 0. And we subtract, we get 160. How many times will 32 go into 160? 3 times what is about 16?
3 times 5.
3 times 5. Remember, the 5 goes over the ones place again. 5 times 32 is actually 160. I love it when that happens. So I add it all together, and I get my answer at 25. Now, do I care if you use long division? No, I don't. I'm not going to show it to you, but if you already know how to do it, then do it. The key is the place value, though. You've got to put your quotient in the right spot. All right, let's do one more. You want a brain sweater?
No.
Oh, hush. Let's give you one.
Can you try like drawing a sweater on the brain?
I know, I got to figure that out. All right, I'm going to say let's see, 9 hundredths into 2,466. 9 hundredths into 2,466.
Come on, you're making it easy for us.
No, I just said it wrong. All right, I'm going to be working it up here. You work it on yours and see. Oh, and let me draw my brain. Sweating. Because he's working out and he is so hot. Okay.
I always wondered how you draw those brains, but mine end up looking just like big clouds.
Remember to rewrite, please. He is. He's across the hall. Mhm.
I only have 3.
Okay. So, I'm going to show you that answer for the video. But the key here is that you've got to get the decimal out of the divisor. So y'all hold on one second, please. We'll come back to this, the rain sweater. You've got to get the decimal out of the divisor. However many times you move the decimal out of the divisor, you have to move it that many times in the dividend. If you don't, you've changed your problem. And that is not allowed. You do not have the authority to do that. So, let's take like one more little note. Ready? Up here at the top. Move decimal to make whole number in divisor. Then move it same number of times in dividend. Move decimal to make whole number in divisor. Then move it the same number of times in the dividend. Please rewrite your problems after you have moved your decimal. It's too messy otherwise. Make sure you turn in all work, not just the answers. Okay? You turn in just the answers, I'm assuming you're using a calculator and you will not get credit. Dun dun dun. Miss Hurt is so mean. She actually makes us practice. All right, that's it.